In his film Sorry to Bother You, Boots Riley portrays the relationship of Cassius Green and his girlfriend Detroit. The couple live in the apartment of Cassius Green's uncle and are struggling to pay rent. To combat this, Cassius gets a job at a telemarketing company called Regalview.
While the low-level callers start to protest for better pay and working conditions, Cassius is given the advice from Danny Glover to use a white voice, or rather one that the white person on the other end of the phone wants to sound like in order to become a power caller. This involves conveying a relaxed, not a care in the world tone, implying there is nothing at stake for you at the other end of the line.
Yeah, but let me tell you, I got a special. Look, you bring a chick home to your apartment. It's clean, it's stylish. Of course it is. She's already seen that from the guy she was with 2 weeks ago. And then her eyes move over to those brown leather bad boys from the Inside Encyclopedia's intellectual edition. It's fuck time. You know what I mean? Yeah, holla, 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 holla. Oh, yeah? Spin doctors. Classic. Tim, I want to chop it up more, but I gotta get to my squash game. Was that Visa or MasterCard?
Oh, this bullshit is crazy.
His white voice skyrocketed Cash to become a power caller. With his new salary, he buys a new apartment and abandons his friends and girlfriend, who are still protesting the company and fighting for their rights.
Detroit holds an art show full of political commentary later in the film, in which she also uses a white voice. This is slightly different from Cash's white voice, though, as she implements it in a political art piece to showcase the absurdity of society telling black individuals that assimilating to white culture is the only way for them to succeed.
Welcome, friends. Gather around. Form a semicircle. Tonight, we will have a transformative experience. In those containers, there are broken cell phones, used bullet casings, and water balloons filled with sheep's blood. Cell phones can only work with a mineral coltan, which is found in Africa's Congo. The profit involved in this has created hardship and wars. I will stand here. If you feel so moved, you may throw the items in the containers at me.
From the art show, Cash goes to a party at Steve Lift's house, the owner of Worry Free. Worry Free is a company that offers financially struggling individuals an escape from the rat race. They offer employment for life and free housing and food. At a closer look, though, this essentially represents a modern form of slavery, which in the film directly targets minority populations. In this scene, Steve Lift puts Cash on display in front of the white partygoers, asking him to rap.
Lift brings Cash into his office during the party to convince him to become a leader within Worry Free. Cash goes to the bathroom during this meeting and finds the latest creation of Worry Free. The company genetically modifies humans to add horse DNA to their systems. They then turn into what Lift calls equisapiens. Cash is obviously horrified by the sight.
During this meeting, Lift had given Cash a line of coke, which Cash later finds out is the mechanism used to apply the horse genes. The next morning, Cash calls Detroit to check to make sure he isn't making the transition to an equisapien. This scene shows the two finding common ground and speaking out against Worry Free based on this new horrific information.
Cash, Detroit, and their friends host a fortified protest outside of Regalview, in which Cash gets knocked out and watches the rest of the protest from a van. Here, he sees the Equisapiens come and fight off the SWAT team, which had been violently attacking the protesters. They free Cash and then flee off into the night.
After the protest, Cash believes they have won the fight against Worry Free and returns to his uncle's apartment and his job at Regalview. Just as he is getting settled, Cash hits his face and starts to develop a horse nose. The film ends with a fully transitioned Cash leading a group of Equisapiens into Steve Lift's mansion. The final shot is of Cash breaking down the door in a menacing manner to a terrified Steve Lift.
The main message shows how our capitalist society uses economic suppression to place minorities below white people to show how we live in a white supremacy. The first technique we are going to employ to understand this media text is looking at who created it. Boots Riley made his name as a rapper in the group Coop before he made his feature film directorial debut with Sorry to Bother You in July of 2018. Riley's rap career and lyrics often centered around political themes such as police brutality, criminal justice system, capitalism, and the patriarchy. Once he made the transition to film, he brought these themes with him, where they culminated in Sorry to Bother You. The political contents and absurdist surrealism of his screenplay took a while to attract high-profile actors, but eventually caught on. The final product included the likes of Danny Glover, Terry Crews, Armie Hammer, and Tessa Thompson. Riley's reputation as a successful rapper, tied with the star-studded cast he brought together, created a perfect situation to attract the attention of his intended audiences. As we've mentioned, Boots Riley has spent much of his rap career focusing on political themes. He moved into the realm of film in order to visually represent these as well. In both his rap and film work, Riley hopes to paint a picture of the current state of capitalism and racism in our society. To do so, he uses Worry Free to portray a specific message to the audience. The message being sent throughout the movie by Riley speaking to how our society is riddled with systematic realism. Riley wanted to represent this idea through an extreme representation of slavery in our society by doing something no one has ever done before in a film: genetic manipulation to horses. In addition to this, Riley uses Cassius's rap performance at the Worry-Free party to show how society views Cassius in the setup of systematic racism.
Riley catches the attention of his audience through a couple of key creative techniques, the most prominent being absurdity and magical realism. Riley sets the scene in a dystopian Oakland, California, in which Cash and Detroit's white voices are voiced over by white actors. Riley uses voiceovers over the actors and actresses when they are resembling a different race. Every time Cassius is speaking on the phone to customers, David Cross's voice comes across as Cassius's voice, allowing him to sound like a white man. When Detroit had her art show, Lily James' voice is used to comment on the white voice with performance to show the absurdity of catering a white voice and how it is ingrained within society. The horse people, who are called eco-sapiens, are metaphors to a never-ending cycle of a capitalist labor system. Riley takes it a step further to highlight the racial and economic component in the society. Riley chose horses in particular to emphasize animal labor, domestication, and racism as a motif. Strong as a horse and working like a horse are the sayings Riley wanted to work off of. They are kept naked and chained in the basement of the mansion like slaves, drawing on racism. Depending on factors consisting of one's ethnicity and socioeconomic status, people might view this movie differently. A white person's reaction could be one reflecting on how their voices help them get to where they are. Additionally, some may approach this movie with denial, knowing that one has success in life because of their skin color or their voice is a concept that some white people have not considered before. A black response could be in agreement with the movie that if you act white and talk white, you will succeed. If you change in order to fit in more with the white patriarchy, then you will succeed. Some black people would agree when they call other black people names like Oreos to signify a person who's black on the outside but white on the inside. This would be offensive because it means you aren't one within the black community. You act outside our cultural norms, therefore you are whitewashed or trying to assimilate in some type of way. Both white and black viewers can experience this movie in multiple ways. From what we have found, both can agree with the film and both disagree with the messages, as with any contentious issues.
The issues that arise in this film to an extent mirror what is going on in American society with protesting and activism. The Black Lives Matter movement tries to raise awareness to the brutality and unfairness the justice system and society have towards black people in America. All Lives Matter is a counter-movement that takes away the priority of black people in general and suppresses their voice.
As we have discussed, Riley relies heavily on repetition of creative techniques throughout the film. Motifs such as social commentary on capitalism and race through voiceovers and the ideals of Worry Free are present in every scene of the film. He does this so much so that the audience is on the brink of being overwhelmed. This fine line of effective repetition is very purposeful by Riley. If he were to add more, he would run the risk of overwhelming the audience and being counterproductive.
As Riley created this film to provide a social commentary on race and capitalism, these motifs are continually brought up. First, Riley presents Regal View as a very defined social hierarchy. Cash and his friends enter at the bottom of the totem pole, and Cash is able to ride the elevator to the top floor of the power callers by using his white voice. Cash plays into this hierarchy while also dealing with his internal struggle with the tensions created between him and his friends. Additionally, Steve Lift perpetuates systemic racism by using his white privilege to leverage the success of his business, Worry Free. The lifestyle he proposes to struggling customer parallels the rise of slavery in the United States. In opposition to this, Detroit and her peers employ political art, which also becomes a repeated motif.
Detroit is an activist that speaks out on white supremacy and the wrong actions the government partakes in. A value that is shown in this film is how one being strong and speaking out on wrongful actions that suppress black people can make a change. Also, having woke people within a society that can spread an awareness to racial issues is important to maintain a diverse understanding. The lifestyles shown had a clear line between the working class and upper class, but no representation of the middle class until the end of the movie.
Although the repetition of racial and capitalist representations are effective, there is one aspect of the film which could be done without. The video of Cash getting hit in the head with a soda can goes viral on YouTube, which then translates to mass media attention from talk shows to Afro wigs sporting an attached soda can. This aspect of the film feels forced in an attempt to connect to the modern generation. It does not add to the commentary of the film and arguably distracts from the greater message being sent.